world is wrapped in a velvet silence as the stars begin to fade into the soft, misty gray of an early dawn. And inside the herbalist's small stone cottage, the air is thick with the comforting, dusty scent of dried lavender and earthy peppermint that hangs in bundles from the low timbered rafters. A single thin beam of moonlight filters through the small glass window, catching the fine dust motes that dance in the perfectly still air, and the room feels like a sanctuary of peace, where time has slowed down to the pace of a single, quiet breath. You are invited to settle deeply into your pillows, to let the weight of your body be supported by the softness of your bed, and to drift away into a world of gentle rhythms and soft healing plants. Let the scent of the garden wrap around you like a warm blanket as we enter the quiet, safe space of the herbalist's day. Chapter 1. The herbalist stirs in the quiet dark, long before the sun has thought to crest the distant, sleeping hills, his eyes opening slowly to the familiar sight of the heavy oak beams above his bed, and he feels a deep, heavy sense of calm as he pushes back the thick wool blankets to stand on the cool, solid floorboards of his room. He dresses in the dim light, his fingers moving with a quiet and practiced memory over the soft linen of his tunic and the worn leather of his belt. And the house remains entirely silent around him, a stillness that feels like a physical presence, pressing gently and kindly against his skin as he moves toward the workshop where the plants are kept. He walks with soft, rhythmic footsteps, the transition from the bedroom to the shop marked by a subtle change in the air, which grows cooler and smells of the damp earth and the sweet, resinous scent of pine needles that have been gathered for the winter. In the center of the room stands a large wooden table, its surface worn smooth by years of use, and the herbalist reaches for his first tool, a small iron shears used for trimming the delicate stems, its handle cool and solid in his palm as he prepares to organize the morning's harvest. He begins to move the dried bundles of rosemary from the drying racks to the ceramic jars, a slow and repetitive motion that requires no thought, just the steady rise and fall of his arm, a movement that feels as natural as the swaying of the trees in the wind. Lift, trim, place, lift, trim, place. And with every movement, a faint cloud of herbal dust rises into the air, catching the pale light and swirling in lazy, hypnotic circles. The leaves make a soft, rustling sound against the ceramic, like the sound of dry grass underfoot on a summer afternoon, and he repeats this 100 times, his mind drifting into a state of quiet meditation, where the only reality is the texture of the leaves and the coolness of the jars. Once the rosemary is tucked away, he turns to the lavender, the purple flowers having turned a soft, dusty gray during their time in the rafters, and he gently rubs the blossoms between his thumb and forefinger to release them from the stalks. The scent is immediate and profound, a wave of floral sweetness that settles his heart and makes his breathing even deeper and slower than before. And he watches the tiny seeds fall into a linen pouch with a sound like falling sand. He gathers his glass vials and his clay pots, laying them out in a neat and orderly line on the table, each vessel having its own special place. Each one a silent partner in the slow and beautiful craft of healing that begins in the dark. The the air in the workshop is beginning to brighten as the first hint of dawn filters through the trees outside, casting long and soft shadows that stretch across the stone floor to touch the far corners where the baskets and the empty crates wait in their own patient, wooden silence. He feels the coolness of the morning air on his face and the warmth of the wood beneath his hands, a perfect balance of sensations that makes him feel grounded and safe, anchored in a moment of time that belongs only to him and the quiet preparations of the day. There is no hurry, no need to rush, for the garden outside is still dreaming under a blanket of dew. And so he lingers over each small task, polishing a silver spoon with a scrap of soft cloth, or simply standing still and listening to the deep, resonant silence of the stone walls. His breath is slow and steady, matching the pace of his hands, and as the world begins to wake with the first soft chirps of a distant bird, he feels a deep and abiding contentment, knowing that everything is in its place and the day is unfolding exactly as it should, one slow and gentle movement at a time, while the stars remain hidden but near. He touches the edge of the woven baskets, feeling the rough texture of the reeds, and then he touches the smooth surface of a polished stone pestle, a contrast that reminds him of the simplicity of the elements he works with. And he smiles a small, private smile in the growing light. The stillness of the room is like a liquid, filling his mind and washing away any lingering fragments of dreams, replacing them with the solid, comforting reality of the stems and the seeds and the glass. He moves to the shelf to fetch the beeswax, his boots making a soft scritch on the floor, and he sets it near the small hearth where the coals are still warm, watching the yellow block begin to soften very slowly, becoming pliable and sweet-scented like the hives in the orchard. Every motion is part of a long, unbroken chain of mornings, a ritual that brings a sense of order and peace to his soul, and he feels the weight of the world's noise falling away, leaving only this quiet room and the soft, repetitive setup of his craft. Chapter 2. The sun has climbed a little higher, casting a warm, buttery light across the workshop table, and the herbalist begins the long and meditative process of grinding the dried roots, his hands grasping the heavy stone pestle with a slow and deliberate strength that feels like the steady pulse of the earth itself. He leans his weight forward, pushing the stone into the mortar in a circular, rolling motion, and the roots resist just a little, a soft and crunching sound that makes his muscles feel warm and engaged in a way that is deeply satisfying and calm. He turns the pestle again and again, a graceful and rhythmic cycle that looks like the slow turning of a water wheel in a quiet stream, and he repeats the motion: press, turn, lift, press, turn, lift. A pattern that has no beginning and no end, only the steady and hypnotic rhythm of his own breathing and the soft heartbeat of the stone. The roots are tough at first, smelling of dark soil and ancient forests, but as he works them with his steady hands, they begin to transform, becoming a fine, fragrant powder that yields to his touch and coats the sides of the mortar in a layer of pale gold. He can feel the vibration of the stone in his palms, a low and steady hum that seems to travel up his arms and settle in his chest, making him feel as though he is a part of the very minerals he uses, a part of the floor and the walls and the world. The silence of the shop is filled only by the soft, rhythmic grinding, a gentle, earthy grr, followed by the rustle of his linen sleeves against the table, and the world outside the stone walls feels like a distant and unimportant dream, far removed from this circle of light and dust. As he works, his mind becomes as smooth and quiet as the powder itself, his thoughts drifting away like white clouds on a summer afternoon, leaving only the sensation of the work and the deep humming peace that radiates out to his fingertips. He pauses occasionally to add a few drops of oil from a blue glass bottle, the liquid falling in slow, heavy beads that darken the powder and turn it into a rich, thick paste, and the scent changes again, becoming deep and spicy and warm. He continues the motion, his body swaying slightly in time with the pestle, and the light in the room catches the movement of his hands, painting them in gold and shadow as the hours pass in a blur of quiet productivity. The dust motes in the air dance in the thick beams of light, moving in slow and lazy spirals that mirror the herbalist's own repetitive movements, and he finds himself watching them with a half smile, fascinated by the way they catch the sun. After a long time, when the paste is perfectly smooth and the scent has filled every corner of the room, he begins to stir a large pot of water on the hearth, the surface of the liquid beginning to shimmer with the first hints of heat. He adds the herbs one by one, watching them swirl in the water like tiny dancers, and he takes up a long wooden spoon to stir the infusion, moving it in slow, wide circles that churn the water into a dark and healing tea. Round and round he goes, the steam rising in thick, white curls that smell of spring rain and green leaves, and the warmth from the fire wraps around him like a heavy wool blanket, making his limbs feel loose and relaxed. This time of waiting and stirring is the softest part of the day, a period of absolute stillness where the only task is to exist and to watch the steam rise, painting long and misty patterns against the dark wood of the rafters. The shop feels like a sanctuary, a place where the clocks of the world have stopped, and the only measure of time is the slow, invisible change of the water into medicine. And the herbalist lets his head lean back for a moment, his eyes half closing in the warmth of the hearth. He listens to the quiet hiss of the water and the occasional pop of the wood in the fire. Tiny sounds that only emphasize the deep, liquid quiet of the room, and he feels a heavy, sleepy warmth spreading through his limbs. The air is thick with the scent of the infusion, a combination that feels like safety and home and ancient wisdom. And as he sits there in the golden silence, he feels a profound connection to the plants and the seasons. He watches a small bee hover near the window, attracted by the sweetness of the herbs, and he feels a kinship with every quiet creature that moves through the world with purpose and peace. The infusion continues to simmer, a silent miracle of extraction happening right before his eyes, and he breathes in the stillness, letting it fill his lungs and slow his pulse until he is nearly as still as the stone walls themselves. Chapter 3. The afternoon sun has begun its long and lazy slide toward the horizon, the light in the workshop turning from gold to a deep, warm amber, and the herbalist begins the final quiet tasks of the evening with a body that feels heavy and pleasantly tired. He pours the finished infusion through a fine linen cloth into a series of glass jars. The sound of the liquid, a gentle, splashing murmur that is as soothing as the sound of a distant brook in a forest of ancient oaks. He watches the liquid settle in the jars, the deep green and rich brown colors glowing in the fading light like polished gemstones, and he feels a quiet, heavy pride in the work he has done, a sense of completion that settles deep in his bones. With the medicine made, he begins the slow, rhythmic cleaning of his sanctuary, taking a damp cloth and wiping the wooden table in long, sweeping strokes that make a sound like the rustling of silk. Shush, shush, shush. Gathering the stray bits of leaf and root into a neat pile to be returned to the earth. He washes his mortar and pestle in a basin of cool water, the stone clicking softly against the clay. And he dries them with a clean cloth until they are smooth and gray and ready for the next day's work. He hangs the damp cloths on a line near the hearth, watching them sway slightly in the draft. And then he turns his attention to the jars, labeling them with small pieces of parchment and tying them with bits of twine. The world outside is growing quiet now, the birds tucking their heads under their wings and the evening mist rolling in from the meadows, and the herbalist feels a profound sense of peace, a quiet joy that comes from a day spent in simple, honest labor. He extinguishes the small fire in the hearth, leaving only a few glowing embers to cast a soft, red light across the floor. And he stands for a moment in the doorway, looking back at his tools and his plants, all resting in the soft, blue shadows of the twilight. His body feels delightfully heavy, a warm sensation that starts in his feet and moves all the way up to his shoulders, making him long for the softness of his bed and the deep, dreamless sleep that follows a day of peace. He walks slowly through the house, his movements quiet and respectful of the stillness, and as he enters his bedroom, the scent of the herbs still clings to his hair and his skin, a comforting reminder of the garden and the woods. He climbs into his bed, the linen sheets feeling cool and crisp at first, but quickly warming to the heat of his body as he pulls the thick wool blankets up to his chin, tucking them in around his shoulders until he is encased in a cocoon of warmth. He lies there for a moment with his eyes open, looking at the dim outlines of his room, the familiar shapes of the chest and the chair and the bundles of herbs hanging from the ceiling. His muscles feel loose and relaxed, and he lets his head sink into the soft pillow, his thoughts slowing down until they are nothing more than the gentle pulse of his own heartbeat. The silence of the cottage is total, a deep and liquid quiet that fills his ears and his heart. And he knows that the medicine is cooling in the jars, the plants are resting in the dark, and the world is exactly as it should be. He closes his eyes and breathes in the faint scent of lavender that lingers on his pillow, and as the house settles around him with a final, gentle sigh, he drifts off into a sleep that is as deep and nourishing as the roots he has spent his day tending. He feels the house around him, a sturdy shell of stone and timber protecting him from the wind and the night. And he sinks further into the softness of the mattress, his breath becoming a slow, rhythmic wave that carries him away. The world is far away now, a distant and hazy place that has no power over the stillness of his room. and he is a part of the night, a part of the herbs, and a part of the peace that remains when the work is done. Sleep comes to him like a slow tide, washing over him and pulling him down into the beautiful, heavy darkness, where he will rest until the stars fade once again and the quiet cycle begins anew. Sleep now, sleep, sleep.